Hi guys, over the past couple of weeks I've received several questions on which IPSC-USPSA books I read and which podcasts I listen to. Since this was a recurring question, I thought it was interesting to give you a very quick how-to video on the most inspiring IPSC books and podcasts. There are a lot of IPSC, USPSA or practical shooting books out there. I'm certainly not going to discuss all of them. The ones I'm going to discuss are the must-read IPSC books. I'm not going to provide any links to specific providers. If you're interested in these books, just Google them and try to find the cheapest ones that you can actually get out there and start studying. The first book I'm going to discuss is written by the one and only Brian Enos. It's called Practical Shooting Beyond Fundamentals. This really is one of the first practical shooting books that you could find, but mind you, it's still highly relevant. It really focuses on the basics and already stresses the importance of the mental game related to shooting matches and competitions. I do have to say that it's more a between brackets difficult read for the audience that is interested in the book, but still highly recommended. The next books I want to discuss were written by Saul Courage. The first one is called Thinking Practical Shooting, and the second one, Perfect Practice. Thinking Practical Shooting really focuses on the basics, and it follows a structure to prepare you for your next match or competition with a lot of different aspects that he describes and explains. Perfect Practice, on the other hand, has a wide variety of exercises and stages that you can actually integrate, especially in your live fire training. Both books are a very, very easy read to go through, well documented with a lot of pictures and also a lot of images describing our sports in a very, very pragmatic way. The following books by Steve Anderson also had a huge impact on my training, specifically my dry fire training. To date, he has written 3 books: Refinement and Repetition, Principles of Performance, and Get to Work. And I highly recommend the 3 books. And again, especially as it relates to dry fire training, because he really professionalized and stressed the importance of dry fire training so you can actually improve your live fire skills and performance on stages. All 3 books are very easy to read, well explained, and they are really linked to each other. So if you buy one, you should really buy the 3 of them to get a full picture and a full understanding on the way he analyzes and instructs practical shooting for competition. The next book is written by Lenny Basham. He's an Olympic medal winner in the shooting competition. He wrote With Winning in Mind. Now, this book is 100% focused on mental aspects and the mental game as it relates to competition. So highly, highly recommended, because oftentimes the mental aspect and the mental game is something that is overseen by a lot of practical shooters and competition shooters. So I really recommend this. This was introduced to me through one of Steve Anderson's podcasts. I bought it, I read it, it is very interesting, but again, contrary to the previous books I mentioned, this book is also a difficult read, so you have to read the chapters multiple times to really have a good understanding on what Lenny wants to say and how you can actually implement into practice. But certainly a book that should be in your library. The next author I want to discuss is Ben Stöger, and his co-writer for the book I'm going to discuss, Joel Park. Ben Stöger wrote many books on practical shooting and dry fire training. and one of their latest books is called Practical Shooting Training. This is one of the most recent IPSC-USPSA training books that you can actually buy. It's very comprehensive, very well explained with a lot of visuals and pictures in it. It's an easy read and also a must-have book if you're serious about improving your performance in practical shooting and to improve your results for shooting competitions. The next book I want to discuss is written by Kita Busey. I hope I say her name correctly. She wrote Smart Move, which came out fairly recently and is, I would say, 100% dedicated and focused on movement and transitions for handgun as well as PCC shooters. What I like is the simple way to explain do's and don'ts, and there are also a lot of pictures and diagrams in it to make you easily understand what she wants to say as far as improving movement on stages, which is one of the big time savers on stages and matches overall. This is also an easy read if you're interested in improving your skills on competitions. Last but not least, I also want to do a shout out to the Belgium Parcours Shooting Association, which is the federation that manages all IPSC related activities in Belgium, of which I'm also a member of. And they released two very interesting guides, one dedicated for the beginner and the other one for the pistol instructor, but it can also be relevant for the beginners. Both guides are in English, recently updated, and provide also easy reads as far as the IPSC rules are concerned, gear, equipment, stages, basic skills, and so forth. And then a little more advanced in the IPSC Pistol Instructor Reference Guide, a lot of tips and tricks as far as teaching other IPSC shooters the basic skills, with also a lot of stages that are listed in it. So also two very interesting guides, and you can actually download them for free on the BPSA website. This concluded the section of the must-read books. Now let us dive into the podcasts that I'm actually following on the internet. The first must-hear podcast is made by Steve Anderson and is called That Shooting Show. If you're not familiar with it yet, it's if you go to his website, there's a tab on it that also lists the most recent podcasts. It's audio only. You do have to bear with his music, playing guitar, his dogs, his wife, and also his children. But that actually makes it very authentic and real and also interesting. He provides great insights based on his experience on practical shooting, and oftentimes also responds to questions, he calls them letters, that are sent in to him by his audience, in which he also elaborates on that question. So very interesting. He publishes his podcasts multiple times per week, and they last between 20 minutes to 45, sometimes a little bit more, but oftentimes not more than 45 minutes. So a must hear. The next podcast I want to discuss is called Practical Shooting After Dark, also managed by Ben Stugger on his YouTube channel. There's actually a playlist with all the previous Practical Shooting After Dark episodes in it, so very interesting to also go back in time. It's always made up by a panel of 3 to 4 people related to IPSC-USPSA that share their opinions on a wide variety of IPSC-USPSA practical shooting topics, from tactics, techniques, guns, gear, rules, and so forth and so forth. So very laid back, very amusing, very interesting. Also published multiple times per month, and they last between 20 to maximum 45 minutes. Last but not least, I want to mention Eric Levy, Firearms Nation podcast. This is on YouTube and audio only. And what is interesting is Eric Levy actually interviews a wide variety of people in the IPSC-USPSA and practical shooting community and has in-depth interviews with them where you can learn a lot of things from his interviewees. He publishes multiple times per month, and the interviews, contrary to the previous podcast, last longer. They start at 45 minutes, but they go well into the 90 minutes. But very, very interesting to hear other grandmasters, masters, and other relevant people in IPSC, USPSA community talk about competitions, gear, tactics, and so forth and so forth. Also, based on a request by one of my subscribers, I want to provide you a list of international IPSC-USPSA shooters that I'm actually following on YouTube. You can check the channels I'm subscribed to on my YouTube channel. The ones I follow in depth are, I think, no surprise and very well known to the IPSC-USPSA community. Eric Roffel, Jorge Ballesteros, JJ Ricasa, Max Michel, Casey Eusebio, lately also Christian Saylor, Ben Stuger, and then specifically for PCC, Josh Froelich and Max Leograndis. And I also want to do a shout out to two USPSA related channels made by Pops Quest and then also the Humble Marksman that seriously stepped up their the video output. Always very interesting, very enriching, very amusing. So I also want to do a shout out to those two channels from whom I also learn a lot of things. If you're serious and passionate about IPSC and USPSA practical shooting, I really urge you never to stop learning. If you stop learning, you actually digress back in time and your performance will degrade and will certainly not improve. So read books, read articles, listen to podcasts, watch videos, not only by national shooters, but also by international shooters. Don't only focus on the grandmasters of the competition, but also watch other shooters because there's always something that you can learn from them. And if you do that, you will continue to grow, you will become a student of the sport, and your performance will significantly improve, not only in training, but also in competition.